Minecraft just announced a new material, the resin. In this video, I'm going to show you over 50 easy build ideas, tips, and tricks using this exciting new material. Now, let's jump right into the video. And if you enjoy this type of content, consider subscribing. First up, we have a very cool volcano design. Here, we're using resin clumps as lava drops and splashes cascading out of the lava fall and into the lake below. I love this detail. It brings life to our volcano. We also use blocks of resin and magma blocks to add texture to the lava lake. Here's another example of using resin in a lava pool. We're again using resin clumps for splashes, along with resin blocks, magma blocks, and resin bricks to enhance the pool's texture. You can also use slabs to save material. Here's our first wall build idea. We're using a variety of blocks, so let me break it down. Chiseled resin bricks at the base, with resin bricks stacked above. Between these pillars, we have resin brick walls, and on top of each pillar is an orange candle. Our second, slightly simpler wall design uses resin brick walls with orange candles on top. When placed on walls, candles create a corner block effect, adding subtle depth to the wall. This is an easy trick to make your walls stand out. For the third wall design, we replace some walls with acacia fences to create a see-through effect. If you like walls with transparency, definitely give this one a try. Once again, we've used orange candles as spikes on top. Finally, here's a narrower wall design. We're using acacia fence gates and resin brick walls as pillars, plus acacia fences and candles to give the pillars a spiky look. You can use resin bricks just like regular bricks. Here's a small chimney design, for instance, using stairs and walls to add character. We've added acacia trapdoors to the chimney top to hide the campfire, as the color complements resin beautifully. Next, we're using resin clumps as cloudberries. This is a lovely detail for swamp and forest builds. I just love this tiny build tip. You can also store cloudberries in barrels. Here we have a small barrel, a large barrel, and an open lid barrel filled with resin blocks. You can also use slabs if you don't want them full. Resin clumps also work well with glowberries, making them look like fallen berries, which adds a natural touch to your builds. You can store these in barrels, adding resin clumps on top for texture. Resin clumps can even be used as berries or flowers to decorate bushes. For different colored flowers beyond the standard flowering azalea, try this technique. It works well with all types of leaves. Resin bricks can be used to construct houses just like regular bricks. If you prefer brighter colors, resin is an excellent choice. Resin is also ideal for cool fountain designs, adding vibrant color to any stone block structure. You can also do this with other stones, but if you like bright colors, give this one a try. For a rustic touch, resin brick walls paired with acacia fences create fantastic scarecrows, and adding orange candles to the scarecrow's hands finishes this cool design. Also, you can add orange candles on top of pumpkins to look like that the pumpkin has a stem. One of my favorite details is placing resin clumps in front of carved pumpkins, making it look like pumpkin innards have spilled onto the floor. The colors match perfectly, creating a striking effect. For floors, try pairing blocks of resin with resin bricks for a striking pattern. This can work pretty well in your bright color houses. Alternatively, swap in chiseled resin bricks, which blend beautifully. This also works very well, as you can see. In our third floor design, we are using block of resins mixed with chiseled resin bricks. This can also work very well if you want to make your floor pattern more noticeable. Another option is to mix resin blocks with shroom lights, which also prevent mob spawning, which is a practical detail. Here, I wanted to show you some blending block palettes I created using resin. First, we have a palette that transitions from resin bricks all the way to orange concrete. Moving to our second block palette, it's similar but blends into a slightly lighter orange concrete powder. Just remember that concrete power is affected by gravity, so it doesn't work in every situation. Now, here's a larger block palette I created, which includes a total of 9 different blocks. Just keep in mind that shulker boxes become invisible after 50 blocks, so you might want to exclude them from the palette. Resin clumps can be used to make custom ores with stone, deep slate, or netherrack, adding a unique look to your world. Resin clumps are also fantastic with armor trims, giving armor a beastly lava theme. Resin is definitely my favorite item to add to my armor. In my opinion, resin works best with gold armor, but works also very well with netherite. Our next idea uses resin and lamp poles, pairing resin walls and slabs with acacia fences and trapdoors. The acacia matches the resin color beautifully, enhancing the pole design. You can use resin clumps to represent lava that has dripped onto the ground from dripstones. Set up the dripstones like this, so they create cool lava particles that match the look of the resin clumps on the ground. For a fun detail, try using resin as honey. Here, we've made it look like honey is dripping from a bee nest onto the ground. Another easy and cool build tip. This also works very well with beehive, but I prefer bee nests in this build tip. Bored to stare at your simple honeycomb blocks? Resin clumps can add stickiness to honeycomb blocks, giving the honey more life. When placing bee nests on trees, add resin clumps below to look like honey dripping down. This is one of my favorite details in the whole video. It really gives this cool, natural feeling to your world. To add more honey on the ground, place resin blocks under the clumps for an extra rich layered effect. Resin clumps can enhance the texture and color of ores, especially gold. Scatter resin clumps on the ground near gold or copper ore to look like fallen nuggets. In a forge setup, use resin clumps to create splashing lava seeping through iron bars, adding a realistic molten effect. It can also be used to look like a melted iron near your anvil. For a resinous look on wood, place resin clumps on trunks, which works well with most wood types. Another tip is to add resin clumps to cabin walls and floors gives the build a fresh, handcrafted feel. Resin clumps can also stand in as tiny orange flowers. This is a very cool tip to use when building meadows. You can use resin clumps as a pollen fallen from flowers. I personally prefer sunflowers, but it can also work with other flowers. This tip brings a unique touch to any garden. If you want to add a rusty texture to iron blocks, resin clumps can do the job, adding realistic wear and age. Stop using flowering azalea. For azalea, try placing resin clumps as different colored flowers. This adds unique style to your Minecraft world. They doesn't just look cool, but also adds variety. If you're building a candle display, use resin clumps as melted stearin drips. You can also add resin brick walls for larger candles. In nether builds, resin clumps can act as magma or lava drops, fitting seamlessly into volcanic environments. Does your nether trees look boring? You can also use resin to add texture to warped trees, giving them a volcanic look. The same design also works with crimson trees. This actually may work a bit better, but it also works pretty well with warped trees. If you're working on a nether build or decorating a fortress, resin can be used to create the effect of splashed lava. I recommend using it especially near lava falls or pools to make it look like lava has spilled onto the ground. This works well with nether bricks, but can also be applied to any type of block. To make waxed copper look freshly coated, add resin clumps as wax drips. This tip works pretty well with all copper blocks. For ponds, use resin on top of warped trapdoors alongside lily pads to create a floral decorative water surface. And here we have some bigger lamp pole builds. First, we have this one with a circular top design and a pointed top and bottom. We have shroom lights as a light source, and we are also using some acacia along with resin. Our next design has this cubic design around our light source, but we still use pretty much the same design. Here is a bit larger circular design. This one also has this pointed design on top and bottom as well as our other poles. And now things get a bit different. Our next lamp pole has this dual lamp design. I really like this one. It can fit so well in some futuristic cities. Here is a bit smaller version of our previous lamp pole, but this is maybe a bit cleaner and may fit better in a smaller city builds. And lastly, we have even smaller one right here. This also can work pretty well in certain situations, so try it out. As you can see, resin is incredibly versatile in Minecraft, with endless possibilities for creative builds. This new material is a fantastic addition that we definitely needed. Let me know your thoughts on resin in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. See you soon!